Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 in our Chats with Emily, as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson contained in the Johnson edition. We turn now to poem 368, How Sick to Wait in Any Place But Thine. And by the way, if you'll notice the 4 dashes just in the first line, this entire poem is filled with dashes, and I think there's going to be reasons for us to read, if you will, between the lines to figure out why. This is another one of what we call often the master poems, but it's not completely clear to us who the master is. We are back to poem 249 in one of Emily's most famous poems, wild nights, where I with thee, wild nights should be our luxury. Futile the winds to a heart in port, done with the compass, done with the chart, rowing in Eden, ah, the sea might I but moor tonight in thee. And as we hit that poem a while ago, we commented on the fact that that's one of the more radical of Emily's poems, and yet somehow sets us up for this reading as well. Our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net, down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily, our playlist. Hopefully you worked through our set of introductory comments where we talked about Emily's tortured love life. I mean, that's an understatement if ever there was one. Or is it an understatement? Because it's not completely clear who all was involved in her love life, if at all, and of course these master poems. And then our assumption is that you've been reading and following our stuff through the previous 367 poems. We just finished with 367 and over like a tune. And if you have, then you can situate this poem in the middle of a number of other poems that will tell us Emily struggled in her life to not be with the one that she cared to be with. Notice the port word picture here that takes us again back to 249. How sick to wait in any place but thine. I knew last night when someone tried to twine, thinking perhaps that I looked tired or alone or breaking almost with unspoken pain, and I turned, ducal, that right was thine. One port suffices for a brig like mine. Ours be the tossing, wild though the sea, rather than a mooring unshared by thee. Ours be the cargo, unladen here, rather than the spicy isles, and thou not there. Now, the fact that whoever she's writing this poem to or for isn't with her makes this poem hard to read, right? I mean, we can kind of sense there's this kind of pain about it. She begins with the word sick, in other words, troubled or upset. And then it's about waiting. And we've seen this, that Emily doesn't always have the patience to wait. I don't want to wait in my place. We'll talk about ports here in a little bit. But she would rather be with thine, with him, with who. And who is it that she's talking with? She says, knew last night, when someone tried to twine, hug me, right? Thinking perhaps, to poem 696, Acres of Perhaps, that I looked tired or alone. In other words, people misread me all the time. We've seen this a number of times already in her poems. People misread me. They don't understand what's going on. They're trying to comfort me. I can't be comforted because I'm not with the one that I love. And I turned ducal, to like a duke. In other words, I turned royal. Don't touch me, right? That right, notice all the italics here. That right was thine. One port suffices. When we get to poem 506, we'll play around with this one as well. Let's enjoy 506. He touched me, so I lived to know that such a day permitted so. I groped upon his breast. It was a boundless place to me, and silenced as the awful sea puts minor streams to rest. And now I'm different from before, as if I breathed superior air or brushed a royal gown, my feet too that had wandered so, my gypsy face transfigured now to tender renown. Into this port, if I might come, Rebecca to Jerusalem, would not so ravished turn, nor Persian baffled at her shrine lift such a crucifixal sign to her imperial son. One port, she says in 368, suffices for a brig like mine. By the way, we'll dance with this word brig when we hit poem 723, and this is the way that one will read. And it's kind of interesting to already get ready to read some of these poems. It tossed and tossed A little brig I knew, or took by blast, it spun and groped delicious for morn. It slipped and slipped as one that drunken stepped. Its white foot tripped, then dropped from sight. Ah, brig, good night to crew and you. The ocean's heart too smooth, too blue, to break for you. This idea that my ship has to be in the right place for me to enjoy my life. Ours, notice the repetition of ours now. Ours be the tossing, wild though the sea, back to poem 249, Wild Nights. Wild though the sea, rather than a mooring unshared by thee. Ours be the cargo unladen here. And again, all the dashes, right? It's like she's trying to work through this idea. Rather than the spicy isles, right? Notice in quotation marks, right? The Southeast Asia. Spicy is in 7 poems, by the way, of hers. And thou, not here. The power, again, of this poem is that she never actually says who it is that she's missing. But I think at 2a it's clear. It's hard to be completely satisfied or in one's port without one's pal, right? Without one's close lover or friend or pal. At 2b, well, the metaphor of the port comes to mind, and obviously, as we mentioned in poem 506, we'll come back to that metaphor. Finally, to own a poem like this, who is your favorite port? Or maybe we should say poet now, and maybe we should just say Emily. Thank you.